Okay, according to this, we're recording and my screen's about to pop up. So just do me a favor, tell me when you see it. You guys should be seeing it any second. It should say, don't know much about copyright history. Once again, I had nothing to do with this presentation. That was Rio McBride, who, as I told you before, makes Ned Flanders look wild. So he thinks he's oh so funny. It's just the way he is. And I put the mute on because I was getting some weird feedback, and there's only 3 of us. So anyway, once again, remember, you don't have to chime in and answer if you don't want to. You know what? Hold on a second. Now we're recording. Okay, don't say anything naughty now. Okay, let me get the chat box open. There we go. Okay, so watch that naughtiness. Keeping my eye on you guys. Okay, so as I said, this was done by Rio McBride, who, as I said, made Ned Flanders look wild. So there we go. We're going to start with this. It's not going to be a long one. I got 2 little presentations here, so I figure it's the last one. We don't have to drag it out too far. So let's just jump right into it. It's actually one of the more important ones because we're hoping to teach you a little bit about copywriting so you don't get sued. Or maybe you want to sue somebody. So there you go. Okay, once again, I'm not going to go heavy into the detail, but basically, it used to be you had 14 years to distribute your stuff, and then your copyright ran out. I guess that's back because people would die within 10 years, so they didn't have to worry about it. But they updated that in the Constitution. They said, okay, another 14 years. Once again, not that long. Now it's the life plus 70. So you can copyright something for a very long time. And this was Rio had this student, Aurora Hooper. I actually remember her. There's something called fair use. I'm going to talk about fair use in a few minutes. But fair use allows you to get around some copyright stuff, but it's not a get out of jail free card. So don't think, oh, once he tells me this, I know all the secrets. I could use whatever I want. Now, if Disney wants to sue you, they're going to sue you. And they'll sue you back to the Stone Age, even if they're wrong. Recently, there was I forgot who does it. You know the Got Milk campaign? You guys, Got Milk? I think that's by the Milk Board or something. Anyway, this guy, I believe he was in Rhode Island area or something. He kind of spoofed it and said Got Kale because he was selling kale, of all things. And they sued him. And they admitted later they had no case. They knew that. But they sued him anyway, and he fought it, surprisingly, and he won. But normally, they'll just sue you until you go broke. Dairy farm, thank you. Sorry, my voice is going. Yes, the Dairy Farmers of America. Now I remember that one. So they're a very powerful group. You better watch it. Now, a couple things here. A lot of people, when I've done this presentation, go, "Oh yeah, if I use it for 8 seconds, then I'm fine." Like if you're creating a song and you sample somebody's track and you just use 8 seconds worth, you're clear. No, if they want to sue you, they're going to sue you. What is it? Vanilla Ice got sued by it was Bowie, I think, for the Under Pressure. He used that for his Ice Ice Baby song. I don't even remember. It's so long ago. But yeah, he got sued and he lost. They had the Marvin Gaye thing out, Blurred Lines. And personally, I think if they had just said to Marvin Gaye's family, look, we want to honor him with this, we'd be happy to give you some money, they could have settled that real easily. I just think they got a little cocky. Oh, there's also this one I've heard before, the poor man's copyright. I don't know if any of you ever done this. I did this once and I thought I was safe. Let's say you did. Good, I'm not the only one who did this. You have a great idea. You're like, hey, I'm going to copyright this, but I don't feel like spending hundreds of dollars with an attorney, so I'm going to mail it to myself and not open it. I was always told that works, but it doesn't. There's no such thing as a poor man's copyright. You lost it, so there you go. It's gone anyway. So anyway, you can't do that. Now, this is very important here. Copyright, what it does and does not include. Have you guys heard of the game Monopoly? I think you have. There's a company out there. They're called very funny film. They're called Late for the Sky Productions. And they make what are called opoly games, like Florida State, FSU-opoly, or they made one Catopoly with cats. They make all sorts of opoly games, and Parker Brothers does not sue them because you can copyright your expression of an idea. You can't copyright the idea itself. So if this other company made a game that had Baltic Avenue on it and Mediterranean, yes, Parker Brothers is going to sue them back to the Stone Age. But they don't. And if you look at the two games next to each other, you're like, wow, that's a blatant ripoff. It's the exact same game. They changed the colors slightly. That's it. Oh, you sold them at your store. Which ones did you sell? All of them? Like a bunch? Because I know around colleges they sell those. I remember Rutgers-opoly, Maplewood-opoly. God, that company's everywhere. It's sick. But so, like I said, Parker Brothers can't sue them for that. I mean, they could certainly try. Now, there was Earthopoly. Yeah, I've heard of that planet. We should have a Venusopoly or Marsopoly. There's if in computers used to be named by the chip. Here, I'm going to type it in the chat box, but that way you'll see it. But there was like the 286 chip, the 386 chip, the 486 chip. These are names of chips. So when you bought a computer, you would just say to them, look, I want a 486. That meant you want a computer that had the 486 chip in it. But that was an Intel chip. There's other companies that make chips. So Intel decided they were going to copyright the number 586 because that was the next one after 4. And the government said, you can't copyright a number. What are you going to do? Charge people every time they want to count past 585? So that's when Intel came out with, you might have heard commercials with the Pentium, or I don't even know what they're up to now. Oh, the Omnium or something? I don't even know. But Pentium is a 586 chip. In fact, Asus, I think it's Asus, they named their chip 586. So Intel couldn't copyright that, so they came up with Pentium for their chip. That's why chips don't really have numbers anymore. Internally they do, but we don't call them that anymore. Oh yeah, and a familiar symbol. Someone recently, not recently, about a year ago, the guy who made the smiley face symbol, he never copyrighted or copywritten that, copyrighted. And it turns out he could have, because back when he came out with this, there was no copyright for that. You could copyright that because no one had done it yet. If he had come up with it now, he couldn't because that's a familiar symbol. So, I don't know, the moon. You can't copyright the moon. It's a familiar symbol. Everybody's seen it. Now, this is different from patenting. Patenting is a creation. A copyright is like a work of art, like a story or a game, things like that. Okay, now. He tried to sue Forrest Gump. It was Forrest Gump who came up with it. It was crazy. That was good. I liked that movie. That was good. Kind of sad. Now here, I don't know if you've ever seen these or heard of these in history class. These are called VCR tapes. You might have heard of them back a long time ago. God, I remember all these. VHS tapes. A big thing happened. Universal City Studios and Walt Disney sued Sony. Sony came out with these. I think that was the Betamax at that time. And they sued them because people were taping the shows to play later. And it took until 1984 for the Supreme Court to say, no, that's okay. It's called time shifting. That you're allowed to videotape something. But, like, for example, if you've ever watched, like, a sporting event, like baseball, it says, this game property of Major League Baseball, you cannot reproduce, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean you can't watch it at home recorded. I think baseball's boring. I don't know why you'd want to, but I'm a football guy. But you can't use it like if you owned a bar. You can't show it in a bar and charge money for that game. Now, if you have a satellite dish and you're showing it live, you can charge money for that service, but you can't copy the game on a VCR tape and then play it later. So that was a big thing. That really much allowed VCRs to go nuts for everybody. Now, once again, I'm going to talk about fair use in a second. Oh, Punky Brewster? Oh, I never liked Punky Brewster. Who was that? Soleil Moon Frye, right? I think she was the actress in that. I remember when she grew up, she looked completely different than Punky Brewster. I was like, wow, what happened? I mean, she got older, obviously, but she completely changed. Now, if you're going to criticize something or have commentary, you're allowed to use part of the original work. Family Guy does this all the time with parodies. Any kind of parody is protected. Now, you have to prove. So once again, like I said, if they want to sue you, they're going to sue you. There was a bunch of books came out in Russia. I think it was called Harry Potter or something. And the author tried to say it was a spoof of Harry Potter. And it wasn't a spoof. It was basically this author kind of rewrote some of Harry Potter and just sent it out again, so they lost. But if you're going to do a spoof of something, there was a book that came out a long time ago called Lord of the Rings. It was a complete goof on Lord of the Rings. That was fine because it was parody. Parody is protected. Satire is protected. And once again, I'm going to talk about all this in a second. Okay, public domain. Anything done before 1923 is public domain. So if you found a song from 1922, most likely you can use it if you want to. I don't know why you would. Most of the songs back then are kind of hokey. So you could also put it into public domain here. I'm gonna go to Creative Commons. Let me highlight. Why is my cursor not working all of a sudden? Come here. There we go. What I'd recommend, if you're gonna put stuff out there, you should go to Creative Commons. I'm not going into this because you could do a whole month on Creative Commons all by itself. See, this is what a Creative Commons license does. Classical music, once again, yes, if it has not been renewed by somebody, then yeah, you could use it. Now, obviously, Beethoven's stuff, somebody had to have bought that and renewed it. I can't imagine they would let that go. But I remember back in the 70s, someone came out with a song, The Fifth of Beethoven, and it was like a jazzy version of Beethoven's Fifth. I liked it. But, you know, the 70s was a wild time. Now, if either of you say you weren't alive in the 70s, you both failed. I'm just telling you right now. You make me feel old. I think I have that 45 somewhere. You were okay. Good, April. You're alive now, so you get an A. Philip, I see Philip's being quiet. Youngin. Oh, you're killing me, Philip. You're killing me. So here, this is Creative Commons. Like I said, I'm not going to go into all this, but you might want to look at this if you want to get your work out there and protect it in some way. Now, I hate to be, very dark, depressing, and all this, but if you put work out there and somebody very famous gets a hold of it and they steal it from you, you're in a lot of trouble because they could fight it. In fact, there was a guy who came up with something called Oswald the Rabbit a long time ago. I think it was in the 20s or 30s. I don't know if you ever heard of the guy. His name was Walt Disney. You might have heard of him. He's kind of known here in Florida and California. Walt Disney originally came up with, he had a lot of failures, and he came up with something called Oswald the Rabbit, which was actually successful. And whoever he was doing it for basically took it from him. And he was on a train going home, and that's where he sketched Mickey Mouse. So he did pretty well for himself afterwards. But so if you come up with Creative Commons, though, if you come here and license your stuff, you have a better chance of protecting it if somebody does come and steal it. But, be careful. Don't just throw your stuff out there. I remember a long time ago, I wanted to do this is back when I just graduated college. I wanted to do a fraternity sorority clothing business. And I talked to my roommate whose cousin did it up in New York, and I was in New Jersey. And I was talking to him and told him my idea, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, don't do it. It's a stupid idea." The next week he had opened up his business by me. So I'm like, figures. So don't tell anybody. Be safe. But Creative Commons is a good way to license your stuff, and you might want people to take your stuff and get it out there and proliferate it. Oh, your husband had a song stolen? By who? Was someone we'd know? Jeez, oh my, that's horrible. Did he, what happened? Did Jay-Z kill him or something? What was the song? I mean, I don't know if I would know it.
Push
There, I did I can hear you now.
Kick Push by Lupe Fiasco because he was on the label with them.
Oh, wow. What did he do? Did he,
Yeah.
how did he fight it?
couldn't fight it. He couldn't fight it because we're not rich enough.
Oh, so they did that. They snowballed him.
He was on the label, but they just took the songs, and there's nothing he could.
That's awful. Yeah, so they basically said, "Go ahead, fight us. You're going to lose."
Yeah. They just gave him like a $20,000 settlement or something.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. Supposedly in my family, this is the story I heard, that Thomas Alva Edison stole my great-grandfather's idea for the not the phonograph, but the thing that the speaker for the phonograph. So I'm like, okay.
He did steal a lot of stuff.
Yours is probably definitely true. Mine, I have no clue if it's true or not.
No, I'm saying Edison is a thief.
Oh, he absolutely was. He was an awful guy. I love Tesla. Tesla's a good guy. Although he's nutty. Tesla was fruity. Nutty's a fruitcake. He was a wacko. But yeah, so there you go. There's a perfect example. If someone's rich enough, they're going to take your stuff. Just don't make it easy for them. Stamp your work. So if you got, I'm going to leave the mic on because I'm not getting the feedback now, which is good. But put the Creative Commons on your work. Now, like I said, you might want people to use your work or get it out there. putting a Creative Commons thing on it, you could say to them, look, just give me credit and you can use it. That's a very common Creative Commons stamp. So I would recommend that if you want your work out there. Okay, now we're just finishing up here. This is, Rio is so corny. Becoming your own hero. You have the power to prove. I just want to smack them. Make sure when you're done with the course, you fill out your questionnaire. It's very important. They like to know how the course is going and all that. Now, what I want to do is just do the other one. I don't want to save this. I didn't make any changes. The other presentation is very short. I'm going to have to show it, though, because it's got motion in it. I had done this back when I was getting my PhD at Lehigh. We had to do a presentation about – I got to move this out of the way. So if you're going to chat with me, I really can't see it right now. The digital world and copyrights. We had to make something that was easy to understand and could be shown to kids in high school. So if it's a little goofy or childish, that's why. So this is the acronym I came up with. Open and done, meaning can you copyright it and are you safe? So here. Here we go. Okay. This is your work copyrightable? That's the first question. And I use the acronym OPEN. Is it original? Well, duh. Obviously, if you didn't copy it, then yes, you can try copywriting it. Is it permanent? You can't walk into a court of law saying, Your Honor, I had that idea 10 years ago. Well, where is it? It's in my head. That doesn't help. It has to have been written down somewhere or typed in someplace. Employer-free. This is really important because you'd be surprised. I worked at a small company, as I told you, called AT&T, and they tried to have us all sign this intellectual agreement that said anything we think of, even if we're off hours, is theirs. And they got laughed out of court. They couldn't do it. But on the flip side, if I was at AT&T and I typed something, I don't know, let's say I made a computer program. I made Candy Crush there, and I used their computer to do it, it's theirs. So don't use your employer's stuff. And not libelous. You can't copyright something if you're calling someone every name in the book and you can't prove it. So that's libelous. Don't get involved in that, especially if it's somebody famous. Okay, now is your work done? Can this work with fair use? Fair use means that your work didn't cut into their profits. Let's say I made a Harry Potter spoof. I doubt very highly my Harry Potter spoof would take profits away from her because someone buying my book either A, bought their book already, her book, or B, it's not the same market. Now, obviously, if I cut into her profits to a point that she notices, yeah, she's going to sue me. If you only used a small portion, now this is really vague. Honestly, I would never hang my hat on this one because if you watch, like, for example, football, you have the AFC and the NFC conferences. I think Fox shows the NFC and CBS shows the AFC. And whenever they're showing highlights, if it's from the other network, they always put something at the bottom that says courtesy of. Could they show it for 30 seconds? Yeah, probably could. But that's a very gray area. Some judge might go, no, 30 seconds is too long. While another judge might go, nah, that's fine. So I would never hang my hat on that one. Small portion, never. Okay, let's say you read a history book and you're like, wow, this is a great book. I'm going to copy it. Just because it's an educational book doesn't mean you're allowed to do that. So that's not considered fair use. But I'll give you an example here. A long time ago, I created a website. Here, I'll show it to you. Let me just escape out of here for a moment. I think I might have showed it to you, but I'll just show it anyway again. Because it's just so funny looking now. There it is. I made this for a web class I was conducting about how to make websites. So you can see how old it is. I think they made this in 2000 or something. And it's a fake mall. And I just picked Neptune because in New Jersey, there's Neptune, New Jersey. So I thought of that. I'm like, oh, Neptune Mall. So basically, if Neptune, I don't even know if Neptune has a mall, but in New Jersey, I mean, if they did, I'd piss them off because I still own it. Anyway, so it's a fake little mall. You can see how old this is made. But anyway, one of these, I forgot which one. I used something I found on the internet. I used some cartoon about the planet Uranus, of course, Uranus. And about 2 months ago, no, more than 5 months ago, I actually got an email from somebody saying, hey, you took our stuff, you owe us $84. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But I could easily get away with this because it was for educational reasons. once again, if the person wants to sue me and make my life difficult, they would. But I used it for educational purposes. I didn't make any money off of it. It was strictly for educational purposes, so that's okay. So this is fair use. Didn't cut into their profits. You only used a tiny portion. I would never hang my hat on that one. You didn't take it from educational materials, but it is for educational use. Those are some fair use boundaries. Okay, now, see, in this code, these look like elements. That's why I said elements for trouble. Come on, this is incredible. I did such a great job on this. I'm so happy. Okay, this is called image altering and things. Okay, if it's on the internet, it must be free. Oh, if I make changes, I won't need permission from the owner. Why did I get a lawsuit? See, look, he's frowning. How does this work? Let's see if we can. I'm just gonna have a couple quick little questions here. Here, no, not these two. Here we go. Let me move this over here for a moment, so I can't. Let me just get this out of my way. There. Okay. Conrad Zuse, this guy, he actually created the first multi-purpose computer, electronic multi-purpose computer, back in 1936. Unfortunately, he lived in Germany, so you know what happened in Germany during the early 40s. They got bombed back to the Stone Age. His computer was destroyed. In 46, ENIAC came out. That's a picture of part of ENIAC. ENIAC was like 1,800 square feet big. This thing was like a house. And you could actually walk inside the computer. It was creepy. You'd burn, you'd melt. It was like 7,000 vacuum tubes. You'd melt it in a heartbeat. Anyway, the people will say he didn't make the first computer, ENIAC was, and vice versa. But let's say I take both of their images from the internet and I recombine them. This is a new way to combine them. No one's ever combined them like this before. Can I avoid? Is this a way to avoid getting permission? What do you think? Yes or no? Is this a way to avoid getting permission if I just use two images but combine them new? No, it is not. You have to still get permission from both of them. Now, ENIAC is a different story because that's a government thing. You really don't need permission from the government. But him, yeah, his family, his son is still alive. He'd probably come after you. Okay, Gary Kildall. This is the guy who invented what we call DOS. He really didn't invent DOS. He invented something called CP/M. And quick little story here. IBM, when they wanted to make their first PC, they came to him. And they said, we want to use your stuff. Now, he wasn't there. His wife was there. And she said to him, she said to IBM that they wanted her to sign a non-disclosure agreement so that nobody could tell they were there. She said, no, I'm not signing anything. I got to talk to my husband. He's the partner in this. We got to make sure he was flying a plane at the time. Anyway, they said, oh, screw you. We're going to leave. We're going to go talk to this weird guy over here named Bill Gates. And the rest is history. And, I mean, Gary Kildall did pretty well for himself, but not Bill Gates well. And he gets really mad because he's like, Bill Gates stole all my stuff. There's a command in DOS, a string command. And he always used to say on talk shows that, oh, ask Bill Gates why it's a $sign. He won't even know. I know because I made it. I'm like, okay, you had your chance. So if this is actually something I took off the internet, this first one over here. If I recreate it, what do you think? Can I use it? Did I get around it? This is an easy one. The answer is no. Not at all. Okay, now here, this is Babbage's difference engine. This is about 3 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet high, this thing. Back in 1830, not 1930, this guy, Charles Babbage, designed this on paper. He never built it. He could never build it because they didn't have the parts properly, but he said this could be a calculating machine. And he was right. In 91, the UPenn, kids at UPenn built this, and it worked exactly like he said it would. It would have been the first computer, a mechanical computer, that did multi-purpose stuff. Some people say the Abacus is really the first computer, but this is really where it had mechanical parts. And so it's pretty impressive. This guy actually came up with a lot of concepts that we use today for computers. So he's pretty smart in 1830. He was a warlock. Anyway, if I make a photocopy of this, and this is from the U.S. Department of Defense, and I put it on a T-shirt, which of course everyone will buy, do I have to ask the government for permission? What do you say, yes or no? Do I have to ask the government for permission? The answer is no. This one's an interesting one because if it's a government thing, technically, we the people are the government. So I asked myself, I said it was okay. So when it's a government thing, you don't have to ask permission. Okay, so that was a little presentation about copywriting, fair use, and all that. So let me move this over. What I'm going to finish up with are your final assignments. Okay, here's this one, your digital literacy vision. You have to give it, we do, they're called taxes. I got socked with them last year. Oh, did they kill me? Hey, knowing the government, you come up with something, they'll find a way to sue you. Don't get me started. Actually, I like the guy that's in there now. So if you're a Republican, okay, that's okay. You know, it's fine. I just like the guy we have now. Anyway, let's get away from that. I don't want to get political here because people get freaky when you get political. So let's just talk about the assignments here. 4.4, your digital literacy vision. This is basically you're redoing your first one. Now, a lot of people, when they get this, they go, oh, okay, I'll just copy and paste it again. There you go, I'm done. No, because you're going to get somewhere in this range. You're going to be down here. What you want to do is update your image. Now, let's say you look at your image, you go, you know, I didn't really learn anything in this class. I knew everything coming in, which happens. A lot of times people go, yeah, I knew all this stuff. Then somehow express that in the image. Change the image a little bit. I compare the two images. If they're identical and there's no explanation as to why they're identical, then I have to kind of give you somewhere in this range. I can't give you these points, even if you did an amazing image the first time. So you can completely change your image. You can completely churn in something totally different, which is fine. Just make sure your image kind of shows how you've changed or what you've picked up. You want to have an explanation of the changes. And like I said, if you did not change at all, explain that. Just say, hey, I just got out of high school. We just went over this in high school, and I remember all of it, and I have my papers to prove it. You don't have to prove it. I'll trust you. So that's fine. That's an explanation. But if you don't explain it, once again, if you just put up the old image and you don't do any explanation, it's going to be somewhere in this range. And now these are the easy points. Again, remember, just talk to 2 other people. That's 25 points right there, and make it more than, hey, nice image. You know, say, oh, what a cool image. I remember I had that kind of computer back when I was 14, you know, something like that. And just check your spelling. Now the other one, oops, there we go. The other one, this is the big one. Big is there's a lot of parts. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Now Part 1 has you matching 9 elements to parts, to explanations, to see if you can match them, to situations. Now, I've been given leeway on this one. Let's say one of the things was digital security. And the thing you're connecting it to in the answers is really, you know, a digital environment or something. But you make such a good, compelling case, it works, then I can give you the points for that. So make sure when you match them, don't just match them. Have a little sentence or 2 explaining the match. Because who knows, you might not match it right, and if you give a good explanation for it, then boom, got points. Okay, Part 2. Once again, the key to Part 2 to getting this area right here is make sure you use some things we learned in class in your explanation. Talk about the 10 C's. Talk about all the parts of digital citizenship. Talk about those things that we went over in class. That'll get you here. If you just talk about your opinions, you're going to be somewhere in here or here. Because maybe your opinion, now I can't grade your opinion, but I can grade how you express it. So maybe your opinion just didn't really express it well. You didn't even talk about things we talked about in class. You're talking about things you think are true. Then you're going to be in here. Same thing here. Mention things we talked about in class. I can't stress that enough. I always stress that. If you do that, boom, you're right here. And this one, once again, just check your spelling and make sure you submit it properly. Okay, so